All right, let's talk about the single most important decision you'll make as an Azure architect, because it's probably the one that's going to come back to bite you if you get it wrong. Today, we're jumping straight into the deep end, data storage design for the AZ305 exam. Let's do this. So, let me ask you something. When you're sketching out a new solution in Azure, what's the one choice, the single decision that carries the most long-term risk? I mean, is it the compute, maybe the networking? Nope, it's choosing your data storage. And let me tell you, if you get this wrong, you could be locking yourself into a solution that just tanks performance, blows up your costs, or even worse, creates these huge security nightmares down the road. It's a choice that touches everything. And that's exactly why the AZ305 exam hits this topic so hard. Look, it's not a memory test. They don't care if you know every single feature of every database. What they're really testing is your ability to take what the business needs and translate that into the right architectural choice, especially when you're dealing with some tough constraints. And you can think of these 5 constraints right here as the rules of the game. Every single choice you make is a balancing act, right? You want blazing fast performance? Okay, that's going to cost you. You need your app to be available 24/7? Well, that's going to have a huge impact on your design and your wallet. The real skill here, the thing that separates the pros, is mastering these trade-offs. So, where do we even begin? Well, the first big choice, the fundamental one, is all about the nature of your data itself. Before you can even think about a specific Azure service, you've got to decide, are you working with nice, neat, structured, relational data, or something else? Okay, this slide really lays out the 2 big players. On one side, you have Azure SQL Database. Think of it as the reliable, dependable workhorse. It's perfect for things like financial systems or CRMs, where you need strict rules and total consistency. But then, on the other side, you've got Cosmos DB. This thing is like the globe-trotting, shape-shifting database that's built for, well, for chaos. Imagine you've got millions of smart thermostats pinging you with data, temperature, humidity, user settings, and all in slightly different formats. You can't just cram that into a rigid SQL table, right? It would break. But Cosmos DB, it just takes it all in, no questions asked. And that's why it's the go-to for things like IoT and e-commerce, where the data is just wild and unpredictable. So, the key takeaway here, your use case is the boss. It tells you which one to pick. All right, so once you've picked your data model, a whole new layer of trade-offs pops up. How in the world do you balance that need for speed, the hard reality of your budget, and all the specific features your actually needs? Okay, let's talk pure, raw speed. Look at this number, 10 million. That is just insane. That's how many events per second Azure Event Grid can chew through in a single region. When you're dealing with that kind of data fire hose, believe me, your design choices get real simple, real fast. You need something that can keep up. Now, let's flip the coin and talk about cost and durability. These acronyms, they are a huge deal on the AZ305. So LRS, that's your budget option, right? It saves you from a single disk failing. But GZRS, that's like the Fort Knox of data storage. It'll protect you even if an entire Azure region goes offline. Of course, it's going to cost you. Your job as the architect is to figure out how much data can this business actually afford to lose, and then you pick the right option based on that answer. And this is where Blob storage tiers are an absolute game changer. Think of it like a closet in your house, okay? You keep the shoes you wear every day right at the front. That's the hot tier. They're easy to grab, but they take up prime real estate. Then you have the shoes you only wear once a year for a wedding, right? Those go in a box way in the back in the archive tier. They're out of the way and they're not costing you that valuable, easy-to-reach space. It's the exact same idea with your data. The stuff you use all the time goes in hot. The stuff you barely touch goes to archive. And the best part? You can just set up a policy to move the data automatically. It's a massive money saver. Okay, so you've picked your storage. You've made it cost-effective. You're feeling good. But what happens when things go wrong? And I mean really wrong. How do you make sure your entire business doesn't just grind to a halt? That's where business continuity planning comes in. Now let's nail down 2 of the most important acronyms in this whole business, RTO and RPO. Just think of it like this. RTO, Recovery Time Objective, is how long it takes to get the lights back on after a power outage. RPO, Recovery Point Objective, is how much work you lost right before the power went out. See, a simple backup from last night might get you back online in a few hours, but you'll have lost a whole day's work. A full-blown disaster recovery solution like ASR, though, that can get you back up and running in minutes, and you might only lose seconds of data. The business tells you what they can live with, and you design the solution to hit those numbers. So, how do you actually put this all together into a plan? Well, step one, you sit down with the business and you lock down those RTOs and RPO numbers. Then you pick your tools for the job, something like Azure Site Recovery. After that, you write down the recovery plan, step by step. And now, for the most important part, the part everyone forgets, you test it. You have to perform a test failover, because let's be honest, a DR plan you've never tested isn't a plan. It's just a wish.
Okay, so your data store is picked out, it's cost optimized, and it's resilient. Awesome. But it doesn't just sit there in a box, right? Data has to come from somewhere, and it has to go somewhere else. No data store exists in a vacuum. It's always part of a much bigger ecosystem. And as the architect, you have to think about how data gets in, how it moves around, and how it's going to get analyzed.
And this is where you bring in the heavy hitters of the Azure Data Platform. You've got Azure Data Factory for all your ETL, moving and transforming data. You've got Synapse for when you need to crunch absolutely massive numbers. You've got Event Hubs for, drinking from that fire hose of telemetry data we talked about, and Service Bus to make sure every single important message or command gets processed reliably. See, picking the storage is really just the first domino. You have to design the entire data pipeline around it. So let's kind of zoom out and bring this all home. As we've seen again and again, every single choice has a consequence. The real skill, the thing that the AZ305 is testing for and what you need in the real world, is mastering this art of the trade-off. And this right here is the core lesson of this whole explainer. You don't need to be a walking encyclopedia of every single Azure service. You just don't. What you do need to be is a great decision maker who can stand up and clearly, confidently justify why you chose Cosmos DB over Azure SQL, or why you told the business GRS was necessary even though it costs more. And every justification has to trace back to the business requirements. I love this quote from one of the study guides. It just says it all. Your core skill is justifying those trade-offs. That's it. If you can walk into that exam with this exact mindset, that you're ready to explain the why behind every single decision, you are already miles ahead of the game. So, I'm going to leave you with this question to think about as you continue your own study journey. Now that you have the framework, which trade-off are you going to master first for your next design? Is it going to be performance versus cost, or maybe availability versus complexity? Pick one, go deep on it, and really, truly master the art of justifying that specific trade-off. Good luck out there.